everybody, and welcome to my presentation. Today I'm going to be doing a Rear Window analysis, so let's get into it. So, Rear Window was released back in 1954. It was directed by Alfred Hitchcock, and it starred James Stewart and Grace Kelly. It was also based on the 1942 short story, It Had to Be Murder, by Cornell Woolrich. In this movie, Rear Window, we, the audience, and the main character, Jeffries, witness a possible murder. With Jeffries being temporarily disabled, this gives him all the more reason to be up to no good. With the help of his insured nurse, Stella, the beautiful Lisa Fremont, and Jeffries' trusty binoculars, we come to learn a little bit more about our neighbors through the rear window. This first picture I wanted to present because I feel like it's one of the first scenes that we get that kind of displays representation for disability. We see here that Jeffries is really struggling to itch his upper thigh, or I think his butt, and I feel like you can interpret this as we, the audience, are seeing that being disabled, there are some limitations when you are disabled, and I feel like Jeffries, he is kind of displaying that in this movie, or at least in this scene. He's having a hard time doing something that he probably wouldn't have struggled so much if he was not disabled at this current point in time. So this was the first scene that I saw that kind of was a display of representation in this way. The opening scene, I wanted to share a clip in the beginning of the movie that is probably the only clip, or I guess a scene, where they actually discuss Jeffrey's injury and him being disabled, sort of. So let's get into that.
So did you? Oh, wait a minute, Gunnison. Now, you've got to get me out of here. 6 weeks sitting in a two-room apartment with nothing to do but look out the window at the neighbors. Bye, Jim. No, Gunnison, if you don't pull me out of this swamp of boredom, I'm going to do something drastic. Like what? Like what? I'm going to get married, and then I'll never be able to go anywhere. It's about time you got married, before you turn into a lonesome and bitter old man. Yeah. Rushing home to a hot apartment to listen to the automatic laundry. Dishwasher and the garbage disposal. Nagging wife.
So, it's the only time you can see Jeffries really sharing his perspective on him and of him being able to being disabled. He had a bit of a negative perspective and outlook on the whole experience, and it kind of seems like Jeffries is kind of saying that he's being trapped in here. He has nothing else to do. He can't do anything right now other than stalk his neighbors, and I feel like we are kind of using Jeffrey's disability to represent or to normalize, I should say, him stalking and being a little bit nosy to his neighbors, which I have some thoughts on. So I thought, what better way to dive a little bit more in here rather than just talk about only Rear Window is to compare and contrast it with another movie. So I chose Rain Man. We have two characters who are both disabled. Raymond, he in the movie Rain Man is essentially kidnapped by his long lost brother Charlie, aka Tom Cruise, and he is taken across on this long and exciting, unexpected adventure road trip with his brother. Um, and they kind of bond a little bit, but we see Raymond experiencing some new things that he probably wouldn't have experienced if he wasn't kidnapped, um, and if he stayed in the, I guess, mental or like the home that he was currently staying in. And same thing, you can compare this with Jeffries. I feel like Jeffries probably wouldn't have experienced that he experienced in his apartment through looking out his rear view window, if he wasn't disabled and I guess didn't have much to do other than sit out next to his window. There's a lot of other things to contrast the two movies. We see Raymond, who has a legitimate and he's legitimately disabled permanently, yet he's able to do a lot of different things that we wouldn't expect. And on the other hand, we have Jeffries, who is fully aware of his disability, and yet he is complaining about it. He's completely miserable about it, and he makes jokes about how he will do something drastic like get married. So it's very two different opinions and perspectives. One is on the other side of the spectrum and versus the other. So I thought that was very interesting to see from two different characters in two different movies that both share that are both disabled. What effects do these disability scenes have on you as the audience? So, for me, the best way that I can explain this is its interest or like a hook. What I mean by that is, I feel like I am so captivated by these characters when I see them on screen. For instance, Rear Window, Jeffries, the fact that he is in a wheelchair and he is disabled, but he goes through this whirlwind of events and it leads up to something so intense, so crazy, and I'm kept on the edge of my seat the entire way through. I feel like they really use the disabled aspect of Jeffries as a way to entertain the audience, and I feel like that was what was happening for me. I was definitely affected by that as a lot throughout the movie, seeing him only being stuck in one area and one part of the movie or one part of the scene and him being in his apartment. I feel like that was so interesting to see. Reflecting on everything that I have basically experienced in this movie, I thought that this movie had a pretty negative take on properly representing the disabled community. I think that they sort of degraded and objectified being disabled, and we've seen that through Jeffries and the opening scene in the beginning of the movie. I feel like they kind of also objectified being disabled and just being in a wheelchair in general as a way to normalize being creepy and stalking on your neighbors, and like in a way like not being able to like sort of do things for yourself, when we today see that people in wheelchairs or just in general that are disabled have this, are not limited. They have so much that they can still offer. I mean, we have Paralympics for our reason, because people that are disabled, they are still capable of doing so much more. So seeing how much we have improved and just our perspective has changed is very interesting. In conclusion, I liked this movie. I thought this movie was very entertaining, like, to say the least, and I recommend everyone should watch it. What I would like, if I could have the audience take one thing away from the film and also from my presentation here today, it would be that we should keep an eye or be aware of what proper representation of disability looks like, and the effort that needs to be put in to doing so. I think it's very important, not just for disabled people, but for a lot of people in general. Trans people, people of color. It's almost, it's just as bad as having like a white person playing the role of a black man and doing blackface, to put it bluntly. I think that properly representing a disabled person without it being degrading, wrong, unjust, and just blatantly disrespecting the community itself, is just something that we need to speak about more. I would also like for people to take away, like, doing a bit of background on the movies that we're watching when it comes to representation. I think that seeing the effort that the actors and directors and the team that helped make the movie possible, it's important that we see that everybody is being treated fairly and everyone is being represented equally. So aside from that, I hope everybody enjoyed my presentation, and I also hope that I was able to talk about my points and my opinions clearly. So everyone have a great day, and thank you for listening. Bye!